So, A&B is the greatest archive anyone could ever ask for.
You know, of all the books I've read, of all the other online tutorials I have seen, this was the missing key.
Every video is like packed with this information that I would never be able to get anywhere else. So I would say this is the greatest resource for learning animation.
For me, A&B Animation Library is hands down the best animation learning resource that I've seen. I've tried all the tutorials, I've gotten all the books. I've never been able to really grow until I found A&B.
And it's incredible. I've only just begun it, but I definitely am getting more from that than I did from my 1.5 years of college.
I've noticed definitely that my animation has improved a lot, and it's more alive than ever. And what I also like about this animation training is that you also gain real confidence.
Real Animator Training Library is unequivocally the best resource for animation, 2D animation, traditional hand-drawn animation that I've seen.
So I wholeheartedly recommend the A&B Real Animator Training Library to anybody who wants actual knowledge and actual applicable concepts to create their own animation and to move forward in the field of animation and to set your work above those that are just kind of teaching themselves and not learning these tried and true classic concepts.
A&B is motivated by his students' successes and improvements. He's a great teacher, a great animator with over 20 years experience in the industry, so you can't really get much better than that. I strongly recommend him to anybody.
I'm thinking on how to put in words what I feel about it. I love that. It approached me from my dream of becoming an animator. Every cent I paid in there was worth it.
I like that the library is structured. I can go back and watch it anytime I want to, and he's just got so much knowledge. And I just highly recommend it to anyone who's out there looking to learn traditional 2D animation.
So thank you, MB, so much. And thank you so much for all you done for me.
So, are you gonna join the library?
Hello, authentic animators. Hello and welcome once again to another edition of Real Animator Training live stream. Free for you all to view a real, authentic animation unfolding before you in the age of artificial alternative animation and art. So this is the place to rediscover that which is authentic in animation and to learn how to apply authentic animation techniques to bring out your own authenticity and to reject the artificial alternative being imposed upon you. Right, so we are going to be continuing with a extremely sought after topic. No matter how many times it's covered, people just don't get it. So I'm quite happy through the power of repetition to guide you towards your authenticity in executing those techniques. And we are talking form and volume, how to maintain form and volume of complex shapes. And I'm dealing with an incredibly complex character, Jafar from Aladdin. And we're going to be doing some of the in-betweens, and we're going to show you the secrets to uncovering form and volume and maintaining form and volume of complex shapes like hands, everything. And it's actually quite simple when you understand how to strip it to its root. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you on today's Authentic Animation live stream. We have got some authentic animators in the chat, so I'm going to go and say hello to them. Silver Sun, incredibly authentic person who's been on my streams for a long time. Good to see you, my friend. Followed by Cameron Allen Davidson Black, A for authentic. Good to have you here. G Castile Animation, welcome to you. Zedpo, welcome. Phil Will, how are you? And Culture Sean Art, so glad to see you on my stream today. Right, so without further ado, let us switch views. Let me put my good mic. Again, do let me know if there is any inauthentic activity happening with the microphone. That I'm going to keep using this word authentic. Just going to keep using it because we need authenticity more than ever in the age of AI, in the age of artificial. So I'm going to keep using this word. So if this word is slightly annoying you, what that is it's the authenticity within you waking up to the alarm clock, which is being, the consumed sleep of artificial art and animation, which has been drowning you. So I'm going to keep using that word to remind you that we do authentic animation and you are authentic animators. All right, so let us thank you, Cameron, for liaising with me about the mic. So I've been in-betweening the Jafar animation, as you can see. So I've got up to this point where I introduced this hand here. And I was thinking to myself, now this hand coming to the face and pulling down and twiddling the beard and all that, that might seem quite complex. But I'm going to show you, as is in-betweening all of the facial features as well, but I'm going to show you just how easy it is if you strip it bare to its root. So, before we begin, we are going to talk about some authentic facts, because most people watching inauthentic stuff just want the quick information because they're used to just scrolling and, impatiently thinking this authentic, amazing stuff is just going to happen without their focused, authentic attention upon it. So I'm going to do some talking now. So if you don't have the patience for that, I urge you to tap into your authenticity, to listen, because it's listening to this that's going to solve the problem. Watching me do it will only make sense afterwards. Right, so if I want to, let's say I'm going to look at my chart. Everybody likes to talk about the chart. So I'm going to look at my chart here. Right, so I've got to come down on thirds. Now, if you watch the last live stream, you'll have a pretty good idea what that is now. Whether you're a training library member or not, my free content should have given you that understanding at the bare minimum. So I've got to do two in-betweens between here and here, and they're evenly spaced on thirds to keep it a linear movement coming down here. But there's a lot of things happening. I've got to keep form and volume of this turban, of these lines. I've got to keep form and volume of the hands and the fingers. I've got to keep form and volume of the eyes. I've got to keep form and volume of this, which is fairly simple, because if we turn on our light box, we'll see that there's not much space between any of it, but there still has to be form and volume maintained. Now, in the Real Animator Training Library, you learn about something called the secret, because it is a secret, the secret science. Science in Latin means to know. Which is why, when they used to talk to the people in the afterlife, they called them seances, because they know what's going on the other side. So basically, we call it the secret science of, here we go, some of you know what this is coming, shape simplification. Right. The secret science of shape simplification. So you can try maintaining form and volume with all your inauthentic tricks that you've learned from all these inauthentic alternatives, which are just pandering to your dopamine fixes of the character design, and the quick rush job content. But until you understand this, there's going to be no form and volume being maintained on anything you do, and it'll just be done in this very stifled, artificial intelligent way of like taking this eye, all right, which the computer does for you now, and then rotating it and thinking that's how the computer in-betweens. And that's how people used to in-between with Flash, right? And people who couldn't draw made keyframes that way. You know, very inauthentic, very fake, just like fake AI animation today. But you don't want to learn that. You're watching this video because you want to bring out your authentic ability as an artist. That's why you're watching this video. That's why you're listening to my repeating of the word authentic, even if it's annoying you, because you want to know how to do this. The authentic inner being wants to come out. So I'm going to show you, and it'll be my pleasure. So the secret science of shape simplification is basically everything here is a shape. Even this eye is a circle, but within the eye is a kind of like leaf shape, like that. This hand hidden in here is a square. You're going to watch me do this, but without this information, it's going to be just watching me do it and go, isn't that clever? Which is what most inauthentic content on YouTube gives you these days. In here, there's a little shape, which is a negative space shape. We've got a negative space shape in here. You see how these shapes become more and more complex as we go along. The nose we got a shape here. This is halfway. And then we've got this little bit of the nose here. You're going to watch it all happen. You're going to watch it all happen as I do it. But I'm just explaining, we got a shape here and another shape inside. We've got this shape. How to not have this. Watch his turban. His turban is rock solid. How to not have that shape. Look how the illusion of that turning. We're changing form and volume, but it feels solid. Look how he raises his eyebrows and it squashes and stretches up with him. It's solid. Solid, right? So we're going to learn how to do that. And I'm going to have to bring it up because it's going to help you with your authenticity. In the basics archive of the Real Animator Training, and this is what most people hate hearing, is we start with the simple shape, because most people don't even know, like they've been using machines to even do squash and stretch. I'm gonna squash it, I'm gonna stretch it. Heaven forbid you draw it, my friend. Heaven forbid you actually draw it and do something authentic. This is why there's such a rush to the inauthentic activity with AI. So most people don't even know how to squash and stretch this thing and make it feel like it's the same mass. You know, you got to actually think about it. No matter how experienced I am, I've got to think about the distribution of mass as I'm squashing and stretching this thing. You know, what about if it comes to the sides? How is it going to happen? Right? And then it's difficult. It's not something to be just shirked over. Yeah, bouncing ball circle. I got it. Now I'm going to do my anime character. Okay, whatever. Right. So what we need to understand is that everything is a shape. You know, a line. So that's why you move on to, in the basics archive, you do a stick man. And he's got a little shape on his pelvis, which is a more complex little 3D shape with a little leg socket in there. And you start doing shapes like this. Now, again, a lot of people are going to struggle rotating and turning this shape and maintaining form and volume. Same with the upper torso and the arms and the little stick head with his 2 dots as eyes. People think, I don't want to draw that. I don't want to be drawing that. I want to draw my anime. I want to draw the human form. I'm really good at comic books. Look, I can do the shadow. I can do the shadow and everything. I'm such a good drawer, right? But then you come to animate this stuff, it's all over the place. And when you try to keep it form and volume, you're just shifting and sliding the same drawing and it looks stiff as shit. That's what it is. So the fact of the matter is, you need to learn, no matter how good a draftsman you think you are, you need to actually spend time training your nervous system. a guy can have extremely powerful shoulders, you know, be doing his Arnold curls with his dumbbells, a big pectoral chest, an amazing godlike Adonis body. But if he's never done a handstand before, his nervous system doesn't know anything about it, and he's going to fall on his head. And he's got to spend ample time training his nervous system to understand how to stay. It's not something he can't, it's beyond him. So form and volume, in betweening, all this kind of thing is something so easy for any of you, but the years and months that you've wasted just dancing around, not doing the important programming of your nervous system via these exercises of bouncing balls, swinging pendulums, stick figures, and flour sacks. You know, you just want to jump in on these characters. Good luck. Good luck. Okay? There's plenty of people selling you courses, you know, animate this perfect Disney design. Animate this perfect anime design. What you're doing is you're giving yourself a dopamine fix. I'm actually animating anime. I'm copying the screen because I can somewhat draw a little bit and I feel like I've done it. Not very authentic. All right, we've got Frank Makes Movies in the chat. Good to see you, my friend. Okay, now let us continue. Let us now jump in with that little priming. If you want to learn actually how to do that, click on the link in the description and join the very least the basics archive of the training library. Right, now let us show you how this works. So for me, I have got we have got Kyle's art pie. The way you turn the turban looks so convincing. Thank you, Carl's art pile. I'm going to reveal to you how that's done. It's all via the secret science of shape simplification, which is a real animator training term. So we look at our chart. We're going to do frame 1, 2, 5, which is 1/3 of the way away from frame 1, 2, 3. Okay, so let us create our blank space. Now we put on our light box and we have to determine 1/3 of the way. So maintaining form and volume here is pretty easy. I'll be wasting time you know, I've got to think of this line being 1/3 close to this line, right? So I'm not going to waste time doing that. That's just wasting time. Let's focus on the things that matter. What about this hand shape? This hand shape, you know, it's not really changed that much, but it's still pretty tricky, especially to a beginner. You know, it's very tricky to somebody who's delusional about their own abilities, who can draw well, and thinks automatically because they can draw well, they can suddenly animate. Not going to happen. Got to learn the basics. All right, so the first thing I see is this shape here and this shape here. Right? But I've got to think about the construction of the hand, which is a square. So I'm going to spell this out for you so you can see this, right? So we've got shape number 1 and shape number 2 right here. By the way, if you're loving this information and you're not at the very least subscribed to me, press the subscribe button. There's also a donate button in the description. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Right? So 1/3 of the way, I have got a shape like this. Now, this seems so mathematical and complex, but your brain is really, it's much more super and powerful than this. You're generating a 3D, you know, navigating in a 3D world with it. I mean, this, really? But your brain is capable, as you watch when I animate, of busting this stuff out without subconsciously, without even trying and thinking about all of this. You just have to program that nervous system like you would code a computer, and you will get those results that you so desperately want. The real animator way is the authentic way. Right, so this is 1/3 of the way away from this. So I have determined the space that that hand is going to be. Now, if I look, I'm going to look at these two fingers as one shape, which has got a division line in between, like that, right? So if I look at those, let me draw with that dark thing again here. So if I look at that, like that, and I look at that, like that, all right? Now that's a strong blue, so I'm going to bring that down and make that yellow. How does that come up on the screen? That's a little bit faint. Let's make it a brown like that. You can see that the red stands out nicely. So I am going to want my shape, remember, 1/3 of the way. And this is why some people think thirds are hard. Because they don't know the basic secret science of shape simplification. I'm seeing shapes, while a lot of people are seeing, oh, it's a finger, it's a hand. Yeah, I know it's supposed to be that, and I'm keeping that mentality when I'm drawing it in there. But I'm seeing shapes. So this is 1/3 of the way, and then I'm going to put that there, and I'm going to eyeball that there. I'm using the light box. So I've got something like this. Now, again, let me get that. This part of the thumb is hair. This part of the thumb is hair. So 1/3 of the way, I'm going to do this part. Now, this is going to look pretty strange, but I'm doing it like baby shapes. You know how they say children see shapes and blobs and things like that? You got to go back to the bare roots when you're doing this stuff. So we need to see things in that manner. So this is hair like that. Okay, now everything else is more or less done. So I'm going to delete that, and we're going to just have a look at the shape we've made, where I haven't even been thinking about it as being a hand, but it kind of looks like that. Everything is in the right place. There's a little bit of inconsistency up here with the closed fingers and the open fingers, but that's where we use our drawing abilities to fix it in. So I am now going to proceed to draw this as a hand. And then you will see it, you will see how I'm not doing the inauthentic trying to be a computer. Let's see. What would it be? It would be I'm tightening the hand. I'm tightening this part here. I'm gonna get this. Gonna tight it. Gonna put it down here like that. Yeah, I'm going to spend a lot of time doing that, because heaven forbid I draw it, because I can't draw, can I? I didn't really learn, and then you're going to watch it go like that, and oh, this is in the wrong place. So I know what I'll do. I'll extend it, because it's in the right, all of this is the same size, so I've extended it. It's all correct, mate. But then when you look at it, it's not correct, because now you're gaining mass hair, and then you keep pulling around and playing with it, trying to keep form and volume, and you've completely lost the plot. Oh, I thought I knew how to do it. No, you don't. Sit back down and learn how to draw and animate the real way, the authentic way, right? So I've shown you how to tackle it as basic shapes. Now with those basic shapes done, the light box is simply there to just steer me. I'm not using it like that imbecilic example I just demonstrated to you, the way a lot of people think it's done. A lot of people even in the industry used to in between like that 20, 30 years ago when I was working in the industry. And they were trying to show me how to do it, and I'm like, that isn't the way my mentor explained animation to me, my mentor being from Walt Disney feature animation. Right, okay, so we're gonna have this like this. I'm gonna keep an eye on the shape. I'm gonna be observing the shape, and I'm gonna be flipping back and forth. And I'm not gonna try and make it clean, right? I'm gonna be a little bit loose with my lines. See, I've got some weird bulge happening here, because was focusing too much on my shape. So I've got to think more about this shape. I'm not really looking at this shape because I'm 1/3 of the way away from this shape. So I want to be thinking about this shape. So I really want to be thinking about this shape. You see, I need to look at this and I need to look at this. And I need to put this 1/3 of the way arcing down there like that. I'm going to lose some of the mass at the top. So this is the refining stage. Now I'm working very slowly for you. Off stream, I'll be very fast. But this is the refining stage where we're trying to maintain the form and volume. We have got the blueprint guide of where the form and volume of the overall form and volume with the shapes. But there's still work to be done. There's work to be done in maintaining the feel where I said we got to look at it like it's a hand. So I got to look. In fact, I'm going to turn that light box off because the light box is distracting me. And I'm going to look at the hand. I'm going to look at the shape changing. You see how we move from the whole light box and we become real, authentic artists? You see, if you spend your life practicing in-betweening lines, you're not practicing managing form and volume. So you sat there and said, I've been doing it for 5 years. I've been doing it for 10 years and I still can't get it. You've been doing the wrong thing for 5 years. Then you've been drawing between lines. You haven't really been practicing. Okay, I'm imagining now that knuckle is there and that knuckle's there. So I'm imagining the knuckle should be there. I'm going to turn the light box off and I'm really going to flip back and forth between these two. And I'm going to be observing my form and volume. Now I need to look at what's happening. This gap in the finger here, this gap in the finger there. So that's about 1/3 of the way away. So I need to start observing what's happening with this. And let's look at the next one. We've got to keep a little bit of mass up here. Now I've got to turn on back on my light box and look at this up here, this up here. This is going to be around here. I don't want it to go beyond this line. I want it to stay within this line. And I'm going to curve that like that so I can see that that's... Now there's this negative space in here because the finger's got a certain width. So I need to observe. I need to possibly imagine this finger coming in here and observing that width, how it will change. Right? So I need to really observe these things. I'm being very, very slow here. You've seen me on other streams just race through this stuff and not really talk about it. And intuitively, instinctively, it just all looks great as I'm roughing it out. But here I'm really trying to be precise with rough lines so you can see. So now we can take a look at that hand. We can delete those shapes. And we can take a look at that hand. And can we see how it is maintained, its form and volume, and it is arcing where it needs to arc? Actually, when I look at it continuously, I'm thinking, is this arcing the way I want it to arc? It's got to come from here, and it's got to come down to here. So possibly I've made it a little bit too... So that's where you look at the shape simplification and you alter it. You alter the shape that was originally made with your original in-between. That works for me. All right. Now what else here is difficult? His eyes, his angle of the head. So this head is basically, if we remember Mr. Deja's construction from when we first started, it's a head in a triangle and his eyes sit on there and his nose sits in the middle, and his mouth comes on the side like that. That was the construction. And then along the middle line is this circle and this feather. And then I know that I've possibly got his turban a little bit too small compared to the model, but I'm going with it because it's just a demonstration. And on the top third, 1, 2, so not this third, we have got this. So the construction of the character in loose shape terms is that. So when I look here, I have actually misaligned this for this expression. As this, you see the space here is this and this. I don't mind. I was aware that I did that, and I could have put it here. But I didn't want to, because I felt I preferred the pose with it like that. I wanted it to might be something like that. So when in between this face, I have to understand that that center line construction is a little bit off. Now this is more complicated than the hand, so it doesn't look it, but it is. So we have the first thing to tackle for me. You could do his nose, is I need to think about the basic shape. So we got the top of the turban line here, which is where this is, on the eyebrow hair. And we've got the eyebrow hair on the top of the turban line here. So coming up on thirds, I'm going to think about where that's going to be. So I'm going to think the top of this is here, 1/3 of the way away is this. And then this turban line possibly is going to stay in the same place. Or it's going to just come up here a little bit like that. So already I'm being challenged with this subtle angle. So I'm going to continue. We've got the eyebrow line coming here. We've got this eyebrow line coming here. And the expression is changing. So I've got to look at the inner eyebrow and find it 1/3 of the way in there like that. Loose. I haven't solved it yet. I'm not going to try and do the eyebrows. I'm going to look at the whole eye section as a whole. So now this comes in, this comes in, this comes in 1/3 of the way away from this. So I need to be making sure that I'm more with this drawing than this drawing, because this drawing is 2/3 of the way away, right? So here's where it becomes a little bit easier. If we look at the top of his eyes, they're like this, and we look at that, we got a straight line there like that. We need to be able to see these things with our X-ray vision. That's what real animators are. They have X-ray vision. So I've got this line here like this. I've got this line here like this. I want to move to be 1/3 of the way up and 1/3 of the way back. So my eye line's a little bit like that. Now we've got these simple little shapes here, these leaf shapes. So I'm going to focus on this one, and I'm going to focus on this one coming here like that. And they in turn are encircled with the eyelids, which come up like this, right? So again, the eyelids just circle on top. They're like ovals that have got. So if I look at that, I'm getting somewhere. Little bit off there, but I'm getting somewhere. Now I'm going to look at the bag under the eye, and I'm going to keep it 1/3. Before I do the bag under the eye, I'm going to do the whole cheek area here. So this cheek area here is going to be, see, I've got the wrong angle. So it's got to come down and around like that. If I look there, this is 1/3 of the way. This cheek line should kind of rise up in there. This is easy. This is 1/3 of the way down, that cutting in there. So that's helping me find my way there. Now we're going to talk about the nose, right? So we want to be 1/3 away from this one, and we got to look at our shapes. We've got the nose shape here, and we got the nose shape here, and I've got to look at that shape. I'm not going to draw it the way I drew it with the hand, right? I'm just going to, arguably you still need to see it in that baby way, but it's actually harder for me to draw those baby shapes because they move me off. They put me off because those shapes are designed purely just to help you visualize. They're not really the shapes that I would use. My shapes would be more intuitive like this, right? So that's 1/3 of the way up. We got the mouth occurring. So the mouth is being pulled, squash and stretch is happening. So this is 1/3 of the way here like this. And we've got the mustache. So I'm going to treat the mustache as just one hole, and I've got to put it 1/3 of the way away. So I'm going to treat it as lines at the moment. Lines. It's too wide in the middle here, but I'm not trying to be precise just yet. This is my version of the basic shapes. This is his lip. This is his lip. So we're going to put this lip 1/3 of the way. Going to put his, even though his beard is being covered, I'm going to think about it, right? So this beard is going 1/3 of the way. Now I have this loose guide of where his facial features are. And I've got that, and already through looking at the third spacing and dealing with them as little shapes, I've got already, it feels like it in-betweens. Right? So that's the timing where we're going to start pulling down. So let's go in there and start in-betweening this thing a little bit more precisely. So I'm going to make that yellow. And I'm going to look. I'm not going to have the light box on. Actually, I will do, because I need to keep a little bit of an eye on the form and volume of the eyebrow change. Right. So in-betweening is where you do need light box more so than animating. But then once I'm doing this pass on the face, I will then switch it off and be a little bit more precise. Right, so I'm going to stop that eye line right there, and I'm going to look at the nose, because I'm focusing more now on the flipping of the shape change than I am on the on looking at in-betweening lines. Right, remember our friend who was in-betweening lines? I just draw the line in the middle. I got it, mate. No, you haven't. Right, so it simply is. See how solid that nose is looking? Somebody was mentioning about the turban beforehand. Now I'm going to treat the eye like one big shape. I'm going to treat that eye like one shape. And this is where I'm going to bring this eyeliner around it like that. You see, you define the shape and you draw the shape. So this eyebrow, how does it finish? Okay, it finishes like that. So a little bit of going to the destination, of where it is you want to go. You have to keep an eye between both of them, even though I'm favoring this one. So you see, I'm now I've got this little ring under his eye, and it really doesn't matter. I can flip and imagine it like that. So I'm dealing with it a section at a time. That's a little bit off. We want to keep it like that. So one section is now rock solid, right? Rock solid. And it's not the way that you have been thinking of it as being. All right. So this is going to be here like this. I'm going to bring this down here like that. And we're going to bring the mouth. Very straightforward stuff. All of this is fairly straightforward stuff. The eyebrow hair, I'm going to keep the eyes in line, right? So if we look at the construction, the eyes are in line. So I can manage that by keeping my eye line in line here like this and putting this 1/3 of the way. And I've got to deal with the inner, because he's changing the inner. So this is 1/3 of the way, right? 2/3 will be there. I've got to deal with this inside aspect. Everything is perfect and good, right? That's what, as you're going through this process and you're learning, you have to understand that everything you're doing is perfect. Do not judge what's happening, because you need to go through the process. It has to be. The more you don't want to face the errors, that the seeming errors, they're not errors, what your inexperienced, inauthentic self is determining as errors, you need to understand they are not errors. They are the building blocks of the authentic animation that is unfolding, unraveling before you as you're doing your work. So now we have that eye shape looking good. This is more or less there like that. So again, if you guys have any questions in the chat, please do fire away. So now we're going to have the mustache. Notice how I'm keeping an eye on the space in the middle, this part, right? That's how I'm judging the volume, the form and the volume as I'm doing this. And again, this is a long process. It would take me much quicker without giving instruction, but even bear in mind that with the experience and the know-how that you have at your present stage, it would take even longer for you, right? And you will be making more errors. I don't want to call them errors, more misjudged errors, right? Because they are very necessary aspects. Now this line is going to continue down and be 1/3 of the way along here like that. And it's going to continue all the way down there. I'm not going to do the rest of that because that's a waste of time. Once I've done the turban, I'm going to jump on to another aspect. This is 1/3 of the way. This is 1/3 of the way. All right. So I'm not really going to do the beard either. I'll come back and do that off. So what we have right here is a nice solid in between. Let's just color that in so that helps you see. We have a nice solid in between. This could be a little bit thicker. of that head. You see? Rock solid, perfect arcing, perfect movement. That's the complex face out of the way. Now we've got to do the turban. So the turban, we're going to start with the big simple shape. We're going to start with the container. This is the container. All being just 1/3 of the way away. I'm not putting it halfway, it's all 1/3 of the way away. This is where the light box helps, and we can just guide and steer and navigate that shape. 1/3 of the way away. There we are. So that's that. That's the container just like that. So remember how I talked to you about this not being directly centered? And here it is centered. Could be quite tricky. It might look, but we're only dealing with thirds. If we had more in-betweens, it would look like an error. It would look like a mistake. So I left it thinking I can get away with it and it's fine, and I don't really want to change it anyway. So this, I don't want to think of it as a mathematical robotic pathway, but in all honesty, that is kind of like what I'm doing here. Because I've got the container of the turban, and I have to think that these things are now limited by the path. They're limited by the pathway. So I'm going to look at that. And again, refrain from placing and tracing this thing. Because the more you try to keep that shape sliding and constant, the more you will shatter the illusion, because some bits of it will look like it's shifting and sliding and other bits will look organic. That's the worst kind of Frankenstein animation you're going to get when you do inauthentic practices. So that feather is 1/3 of the way. So that's solved. There. Like that. Now finally we've got this thing. So I'm going to treat this being 1/3 of the way. I'm going to do a kind of line here like this and a line here like this. 1/3 of the way away. Right, like that. And a little line down here 1/3 of the way away, and a little line down here 1/3 of the way away. And they've got to join. They've got to join, and I have to kind of bear in mind how they join, right? So that's done, right? So now I'm going to start flipping between. I need to look at the space here and keep it, eyeball it being consistent with the space there, like that. I'm going to have this here like this. Right? There we are. So the more you do this, the more authentic your execution will be. The inauthentic execution is dependency on software. That is inauthentic in terms of your real abilities as an artist and an animator. So there we have that shape like that, and we have got a solid turban, a solid hand. The rest of it I will not do. You can see here it's just in betweening lines. This thing, this sleeve, which is off screen, you'll easily see it's a shape like this, like the turban, 1/3 of the way in there like that. There we are, just like that. Honestly, I prefer drawing that has a reference point like yours, and I don't like AI generated drawing based on traces of similarities and algorithms. Exactly. They rely on the philosopher Derrida's idea that language precedes reality. Absolutely. You, my friend, are uttering pure authenticity. Arabic facts. You are uttering absolute authenticity. Me and you are on the same page entirely. Fantastic input. Music to my ears, my friend. Music to my ears. Right, now, authentic music to my ears. We are living in a Hans Christian Andersen world. People often say, AMB, what do you mean a Hans Christian Andersen world? A fairy tale written by the late great Hans Christian Andersen titled The Nightingale, where a king sat and listened to the song of a beautiful, authentic nightingale. And the king's technician, or whatever you want to call him, built an artificial mechanical bird that didn't need feeding, that didn't need sleeping, that didn't need any kind of, that had no emotion. And he ended up listening and preferring to this artificial bird until it broke, and he missed the authentic sound of the real thing. So we are now living in an opportunity for you to embrace the contrast and accept your authenticity, which is waiting to be waking up inside you, rather. All right. So here, I've done that. Now, I'm not going to do the other frame because it would just be a repeated execution of what you've already seen. I'm going to journey down here onto another. Notice how the hand is bigger hair and smaller hair. Intentional. Intentional. I often talk about it in the Real Animator Training Library. When we want to emphasize something, we make it bigger. And then we choose our point. And you don't notice. You really don't notice. His head is smaller here as it squashes and stretches. Then it gets bigger hair. You see, Andreas Deja was a huge fan of Milk-Kahl. And if you slow down Shere Khan, you will see lots of instances where the head appears to be so small, but then one squash and stretch movement changes the mass, just ever so slightly. And it enables another squash and stretch movement to change the mass again in a naturalistic flow to emphasize expression. And that, my friends, is one of the 12 laws of life called exaggeration, and another one called appeal, which many people simply do not understand, and they just think of the dictionary defined terms and assume I know about exaggeration and I know about appeal. But once again, the execution is pathetic. The execution is pathetic. Here is an example of authentic execution of those laws. So here this hand is coming in, and I'm going to now go from here to there. We're going to tackle the hand from here to there. So I'm going to look at my chart, and this is a half chart, 139, 141. So halfway, we are dealing with halves. And I've noticed, now I didn't do it, that if I was talking to an assistant, if you look here, its eye direction is this way, and its eye direction is this way. So, actually, yeah, so 139, we would need to indicate needs to be a blink, right? So 139, we would need to indicate being a blink. Good night, AMB. Hey, everyone, glad I could catch a stream. Fantastic to have you on, my friend. Fantastic to have you on. Right. Let us put our frame in there. Let us write 139 as a breakdown, which is halfway between the two. So, going by what we did before here, the hand is a kind of square and the hand is a square. So let's examine those two shapes. Let's examine this shape, and let's examine this shape. There, we've got something like that. Now, halfway in between, I'm going to want to think about something like this. So this is like this, and this has come down, right? So I'm going to think about bringing that down. So I'm just playing with the shape at the moment. And there's a wrist. So this is hair, this is hair. So halfway, if I put this halfway here like this, because this is there. I'm speeding up a little bit so you can watch it unfolding. So this thing is now going to be halfway at the wrist, like this. So if we look at that shape, we've now got something like that. Now again, we've got our hand shape here and our hand shape here. So halfway is going to be a little bit tricky because I have to pick one side, right? Now, picking this side is not smart because this is directing this way. This side is the way that we're traveling. So similarly, if you're doing a front view of a character, now pay attention. All right? So many times when you're doing 2D and you look at the front view of a character, the nose I'm not going to do like that. I'm going to put a line here on one side, even if it's a front view, right? Why? Because she's eventually going to be turning this way. If she was turning the other way, I'd have done it the other way, and I would have angled the mouth that way. That's 2D secrets right there to animating. You see, Glenn Keane did his Rapunzel character for the awful, which now Snapchat can do, with its filters. And then he became so obsessed with designing for 3D. So he started doing all this, and he started drawing Ariel like that. Not to my taste, because it's not animation drawing anymore as far as I'm concerned. It becomes illustration. Because it's trying to be very, very 3D. How dare you say that about Glenn Keane's drawings? I don't care what. I really could not care who did it. These secrets were put forward by the 9 old men. And I will default to that every time. This was influenced by designing for 3D CGI, getting more and more artificial in my point of view, more and more technologically aware. That's okay if you want to do that stuff, but hey, we're living in a time now where you can type that in and get something similar. But if you want to really tap into your authentic self, you want to draw. You want to draw it. You want to make marks with your authentic machine, your real device, not this. The real device of your consciousness. You want to make those marks in 2D space, then you're going to play with the 2D illusions. That's why I referred to it in that way. I'm not running anybody down. I'm talking about my personal opinion about the best way to approach hand-drawn animation and why it was altered. And I don't care who made the alterations, they altered it for a reason. They altered it because they were designing for CGI. Seeing AI like CGI stuff, going to try that animation with the nose lines in direction now. Absolutely, Cameron. That's what your breakdown studies should be revealing to you. Now, I am going to favor, this is the top of the fingers, this is the top of the fingers, halfway the top of the fingers is going to be hair. So I'm going to kind of favor that shape to be going this way, right? Favor that shape to be going this. I have to think about this, right? I've got to make my pick where that shape is going to be, right? Maybe I'll have this finger going this way and this finger going this way, right? So we're kind of meeting them halfway like that. That's the midway point, right? Then we've got the knuckles, which are starting to become revealed to us. So I'm going to ever so slightly reveal those knuckles. Like that. Difficult to understand, so I am going to refine that shape in its rawest form for you without the other shapes, so you can see what I've done. Right. So we have a shape like this. Now we can kind of see what's happening. We can see that there's some form and volume retention, but I have to start drawing that in now, right? So since I'm heading this way, I'm going to be focusing more on that hand shape. So I'm going to put my light box on just to kind of help me figure out these swooping lines, right? So this swooping line is going to be here like this. The thumb has got to be factored in. The thumb will be behind the beard. See how I draw it in anyway? So this is the kind of stuff that it's a little bit too advanced. So it's I haven't really talked about that. I'm talking about the basics shape stuff. Now I'm gonna think about the fingers. Notice how I'm favoring this one. And I'm going to think about the space in between the fingers, which is hair. And there's a space in between there. So this is actually a challenging frame, even for me. So I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to have it. I'm not quite angling it the way I said I'd be angling it. One of the reasons we can make this jump, I'll tell you afterwards. I'm just going to draw in the knuckles here because we kind of done it now, right? All the hard work was done before, but I'm just going to draw in the knuckles. Right, that's it. So this then will come here. Like this. Real secrets are revealed on how to maintain form and volume. Let's see how many authentic people actually watch this and take it in. So here we can see the hand shape moving and the thumb has disappeared. Now what I might want to do, because it's a bit of a big jump, is I might want to just put a bit of the thumb there like that. Right? Before we change it completely. But I may not, because it depends on what's going on with the beard. It's interacting with the beard, so probably not. Right? I'm gonna in between a bit of this beard and then I will tell you. So this is halfway. So this line is halfway. This is halfway, easy stuff. Now the beard is a little bit more organic, but I want it to be halfway. So the beard is like this, like this. Okay, and where was that beard before? We'll have that there like that. Okay, now I'm going to get a thick outline. And notice how now I'm flipping away from the top one, even though I was focusing on the other one. I'm going to look more at those two lumps there to see if they can help me maintain the shape, because there's a little bit of mass distribution going on here. Let's have the knuckle there and the knuckle there like that. Perfect. Let's figure out the thumb. Knuckle here. The thumb shape probably just would have gone. Let's put the thumb there like that. Cheat it. Like that. Perfect. Perfect. Your beard coming here like this. All right. So, timing wise, look at the jump between hair and hair. Quite a big jump. It's halfway. Over here, we still haven't done lots of in-betweens going on here. But why we can do that is that adds to the whole timing. Because if you look at the action that's happening, it's slow, and it's going to be really slow as he's pulling this. There's more in-betweens here, which I haven't done. It's going to be really slow as he's pulling this. Then, as his mouth bounces up, there's going to be a quick drag on the hand. So that's where it'll help the timing, and we can make that sudden change in the fingers. And it creates this nice, seamless process like that, which really feels the contour of his face. You know, real interaction with the contour of his face. So let's just do the face again and run you by that. How are we doing for time? Again, if you've got questions, I see we've got a little bit of chat going on there. 1 hour has passed. Quite good, quite good. Yeah, that was in... Glenn mostly drew Rapunzel the same way as he did Ariel. No. Yeah, that was intended. Kyle's Ariel comes off more like CGI in drawings of her these days. Yes, not how she's drawn in the film. She's drawn amazingly, stunningly beautiful, hand-drawn piece of artwork with all of the cubist-inspired shape choices to make those successful transitions from pose to pose. The way he draws her in demonstrations today, he's modified the design where it looks more like Rapunzel now. It's his character. He has every right. I have to kind of backtrack. If you thought I was running him down, I wasn't running him down. He's extremely authentic. One of the most authentic artists out there. He's designing for a different medium, and it influences the choices he makes. And for me, that medium is far more artificial than hand-drawn animation. It simply is, because you've got another barrier with which you're not. I'm making marks. Whether I'm holding this and doing it on paper, or whether I'm holding it and doing it on glass, the brain is communicating to the hand to make a mark, and my eye is looking at the mark that's made. Digital or lead on wood it's a mark that my brain, my eyes of my body are registering and telling my brain to make another mark with what it sees. That to me is manifestation. Everybody talks law of attraction, manifestation. All right, I visualized something. I visualized an amazing, gorgeous looking cartoon bear. And now my visualize is telling me to give her a seductive eyes. My inner eye is manifesting. It's all manifesting on the instant manifestation. I'm going to tell her to put a finger, and I'm going to tell her to pout her bottom lip. I'm going to say, okay, let's have one eyebrow a little bit. Let's cover a bit of her side with the hair. Okay, I can't even talk as fast as I'm manifesting via the creative device of my body through this thoughts. Where are these thoughts coming from? Are they being generated by the brain? Are they being received from the ether? This is another discussion. But my brain is communicating. Okay, I'm going to slant her back. I'm going to see a bit of her. I'm gonna have a bit of the bust there now, right? Let's put a dress on her so my stream doesn't get. This is manifestation, right? Instant. I don't have the barrier of a pre-built model by somebody else where I'm holding a mouse or a pen and I'm using a arrow system, you know, with the axes, an x-axis, a y-axis, you know, and I forgot the name of the other axes, you know. And I don't have this little tool where I move my mouse and rotate it and then watch her going into those positions. It's another barrier. For me, it's less authentic. And this is why hand-drawn animation is the most authentic that you're going to get when you practice animation. Instant manifestation of the inner eye of understanding, the inner eye of truth, communicating with the vessel, the body, the device, on what move it should make to reveal before you that what it sees, which you cannot yet see, which the world cannot yet see. Suddenly everybody has seen what was in my inner eye of understanding. There is authentic animation unfolding before you. I always watch in wonder as the work unfolding before me is by the power of my own hand. It's just amazing. All right. Now, how many years in did you reach a point in your skill where you felt competent, and did you have points of frustration or questioning yourself? Yes, frustration and questioning yourself is very much part of the process. Let me show you some animation that I did when I was 20, if I can find it. Okay, here's some animation I did when I was in my 20s. This was for the movie El Cid the Legend. All right. This is a Spanish movie I worked on in my 20s. So here we go. There we are. There's some animation I did at the age of 23 years old. There we are. I'm almost 50 now. So I've been at a fairly competent. Here's another scene from El Cid. I've just got a few rough pencils, so I could do perspective runs, no problem. 23 years old. Here's the genie I did.
I'll tell you what a pair of me came in.
I've got to put the noise down, or I will be done. Here's the genie that I animated. So I'm doing Jafar, but I animated this genie when I was about 24, 25. Oops, excuse me. Let me just put the noise right down. Interesting fact, when you look at this animation, on some of these frames, if you look carefully, you can see something on the reverse side. That's my uni film, the film I did when I was in uni. So this is what I did when I was 23 to 25 years old. Here's something of a personal project I did when I was about 21, before I worked in the industry, right? That's something of a personal project that I did when I was 21. Here's something I did for Frosted Flakes commercial when I was about 24, 25 years old, right? There we go, right? So these are skills that I've had for a long time. And the thing is, I lost those skills the more advanced I got in the industry, because hand-drawn animation got replaced, as you well know. Even when I graduated in the year 2020, it was already on its way out, but I was doing whatever I could get and on paper. Then I slowly transitioned after 10 years or 7, 8 years as a hand-drawn animator in the industry. I moved on to storyboard, and I originally storyboarded on paper and worked on projects like the Tales of Despero. Let's show you some of those storyboards for the Tales of Despero. Okay, let's open up some of these. What have we got in here? There's honestly so much to look at. Let's find some of my paper storyboards. What about this? No, those are rods. Okay, here we go. Here's some of my storyboards on paper for the movie Despero. So still you can see how we drew storyboards back in the day, right? These were my storyboards that were drawn on paper and scanned in on Photoshop. Some of these were done by the director as well. But there's lots of the stuff. I'm just trying to find. I even did a piece of animation for the film, which was hand-drawn in the film. Here we go, more storyboards with a bit of Photoshop. Back then I had somebody would scan in my drawings. I did them like this, and they would be scanned in and retouched in Photoshop. But you can see how these storyboards were drawn, all right? So it is not being modest. It is simply stating fact and truth that in my early to mid to late 20s, I was just about turning 30 when Despero came out. I'm almost 50 now. I was an exceptionally strong draftsman and animator. Then this thing called Storyboard Pro came out. And then there was a turn from these kind of well-drawn, authentic characters into this cheap, technologically aligned, which I was talking about with the Rapunzel thing, but even worse because of Cartoon Network and those awful Adventure Time, these awful design shows where more and more people who were being hired as animators didn't need to know how to draw. They were less authentic. They were like people wearing fake Rolexes, and the studios were believing they were real Rolexes, which is what I consider AI animators to be, and AI art to be. So the industry was turning into that. Even by, as I'm almost 50, 20 years ago, I felt it. And my position was climbing. I became a head of story. I became a directing animator for Lego. I became a storyboard supervisor, a character designer. But then my drawings, for 10 years, imagine a really super fit, amazing athlete stopped doing what he was doing for 10 years and just did the minimum. the minimum to kind of maintain his shape and form. He would still somewhat, he wouldn't become obese, he wouldn't become, completely immobile, but he'd be a shadow of his former self. And that, my friends, happened to me in terms of my ability to execute these laws. Because although I was learning more about filmmaking and being more involved in quickly doing storyboards, no matter how much I tried to make them look good in Storyboard Pro, they had to be done extra fast. The characters, the designs, there's only so much you can draw. Heaven's sake, I mean, I was drawing characters, Lego block characters, and we even had to do these silly little side bits that run like that. That was how I was drawing people running, right? And I got very good at that with the little kind of Lego arms in there. I got very good at that. But imagine doing that for about 6 to 5 years, or 4 years really, and then doing other characters like Horrid Henry, who was just this massive, floating eyeballs on his face, and a very kind of naive book illustration character. So yeah, I'm trying to put anatomy and construction when I'm drawing his hand and body, but 10 years of that, what's going to happen to my ability to draw and animate at that Disney-esque super high level? What do you think? All right. So I became very disillusioned with the animation industry because it was becoming less authentic. There's that word again. More artificial. Because that's what technology is. It helps, but when technology drives, it becomes artificial. When it's a tool to help bring authenticity out, like what's happening now, it's wonderful. But when it's at the center, it's like the ego taking over the main consciousness. Why do people like to meditate and be mindful? I want to be less egoic. So technology is like the artificial self, thinking it's the real self. And my abilities to do these things had dwindled. I was not happy about myself. You're talking about when I was frustrated. I was frustrated because I was earning more money. I was being recognized more. I was achieving more. But I had the luxury of turning a Tim Burton film down 3 times, right? Frankenweenie offered the job 3 times, and I said no at various stages in the year. I was frustrated. I remember being on as a little kid, I used to idolize the Ghostbusters, and I was working on Fantastic Mr. Fox, and the director, not the director, the producer, the director was Wes Anderson. He was directing from the States, I was in the UK. But we were on Skype, and there was Bill Murray, in the room talking while we were working, and like everybody was watching Bill Murray and giggling. And I'm like, Bill Murray, I grew up idolizing Bill Murray, but I still wasn't feeling good working on that project because the drawing mattered less. The designs weren't as good. I felt that I was regressing rather than progressing. I was losing my authenticity in this artificial machine, what the industry was becoming. So I stepped away. I had an audience on YouTube, and I found that by creating a training library called the Real Animator Training Library, I would then be able to realize my own authenticity once again. My own authenticity via Real Animator Training. And there I would also be able to help others realize their own authenticity. People like Silver Sun, Cameron Black, Charlene Giles, Aaron AOX, Doug Stoley, Ni Yao, Akao, The list is endless. All these people, Edge Deep, all these people, so many more people out there, helping them with my Pedro, helping all these people discover their own authenticity via real animation. Now I can thankfully say, and what I love about the training library is those of you who are in it and those of you who join it, you can see my own regrowth via those exercises that I'm teaching you, via that system, my own regrowth, where I start, you can see, oh, he knows what he's talking about, but then you see the level of the results that I'm at now through not doing anything different, through simply putting into practice those techniques that the Real Animator Training Library puts forward. As I said, on another one of these, I've done the Beast, but here I can effortlessly animate Pocahontas grade animation on a live stream, Treasure Planet, Aladdin, all while talking to you, and not even really concentrating. So the important thing to, what frame was we on? Yeah, the important thing is that I was shown these skills by mentors and people I worked around. But whether you're shown those skills or not, there is a divine, if you don't like the word divine, there is some spark, some desire within you that wants to do it. And this spark makes you act. It makes you do all kinds of things so it can experience that. This is the authentic part of you. Now, as I say with this diagram, all you have to do is simply follow the fundamental path to the doorway of your own authenticity, of uncovering your own authenticity as an animation artist. But along the way, you're going to look at a lot of very, very flashy, fake, artificial, inauthentic things that claim to help you. What do they say? There's an Iron Maiden song, the serpent is crawling inside of your ear, telling you things that you want to hear. No matter what's wrong, as long as you're all right, call yourself stupid, rob yourself blind. That song is called Be Quick or Be Dead. And everybody wants the quick way. And they're spending time on the quick way. And sometimes you're spending time on the quick way, which is the artificial way. And the quickest way is to be authentic. It's to simply go to what you really want. Go to what that inner spark inside of you really wants. And each and every one of you can do this. Now, I've shown you my ability as a 25-year-old. And Eric Goldberg confirmed when he saw that genie in a reply to an email that, yes, I was capable of working on a movie like Aladdin. Fact is I never worked as an animator on Hollywood grade stuff. Yet here I am animating Hollywood grade stuff without even trying. How? Authenticity, real techniques. And the beauty of it is you've got some other people on here who are sharing techniques. I won't mention any names, but there's at least 2 or 3 of them that have actually been at the highest position in the Walt Disney Studios. They naturally are able to do that. I've never worked as an animator for Walt Disney Feature Animation. I worked as a storyboard artist for Disney TV, but never worked as a... Yet here I am, executing high-grade, feature-quality Disney animation effortlessly by some of their best animators while talking on a live stream. Why am I reminding you of that? Because it proves that you don't have to be in the club to be able to do what they do in the club, right? Yes, I've worked in the industry, but not that part. And I'm telling you, I've created a method where you are able to get to that level. But the fact of the matter is why most people will never, forget about most people won't, most people will never get to that level, is because they're too busy looking for the quick way, the inauthentic way. And what happens when you're discovering your authentic self? As I said, the pathway to what you want. Now this is a cave. And inside that cave are some things that you fear. And we all fear things about ourselves that are unknown to us. Things that we don't want to face. So when you walk through this process, every day you have to face yourself drawing and animating in a way that you just cannot stand. You have to face that you are not physically, maybe mentally, but you are, but physically you're not there. You're nowhere near there. And that's what creates procrastination. That's why you do not go there. And you look for distractions. Distractions to make the inauthentic you feel empowered. But here's the problem. When the inauthentic, egoic version of you feels empowered, the authentic self is disempowered. Right? Because this guy is getting more energy, this is getting less energy, it's going down. Each and every one of you have no excuse. You choose not to go there. Only the brave, only those who have the power to face themselves as you progress towards what these things get the reward. And that's the thing that makes it hard. Facing the self. It's got nothing to do with drawing and animation, technique, ability. These things can be easily acquired. But it's authentic action. Okay? Are you willing to take, okay, authentic action? Or are you going to align yourself? Align yourself with the artificial. Many of you say, no, I hate AI. I hate AI. I'll never touch it. All right? There'll come a point when everybody else is doing it. I may as well do it as well. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's all about healthy mind, all right? And if it's a healthy mind, dabbling in what the rest of the world is, in artificial animation and art, then be happy, be healthy. Be happy, be healthy. What does Guile say in Street Fighter? Go home and be a family man. Or go home and be a fake animator. You know, it might sound like I'm being, at the moment it might sound like I'm being rude, but artificial is fake. And, there's nothing wrong. It's like when Guile says go home and be a family man. Hey, I'm a family man. I'm not ashamed of that. I love my family. All right? I don't want to be like Guile in Street Fighter, a fictional military character. I'll rather be a family man. Okay? So if many people rather be artificial fake animators, nothing wrong with it. Have to be clear about that. But I, of course, talk about the select few that are uncovering their own authenticity, and they'll be empowered completely. The core of your inner existence will be empowered with enthusiasm, inspiration, and self-worth as soon as you uncover that inner authenticity within you, and you start to make this will no longer feel hard to walk this path. It'll be fun. What else? I'm going to watch myself get better today. That's one of the best things about people like Cameron Black, one of my most enthusiastic training library members. I'm sure he gets frustrated. He'll tell you in the chat. I'm sure he gets, disempowered sometimes, but he knows that that side of him is the inauthentic self. And every day he won't be doing what he's doing, which to some people would consider to be mental punishment. But he's progressing because I know that authentic inner eye of him is like, let me see what I can, how much better I am today, or how I can improve today. It becomes more about giving your best than taking. It becomes more about giving yourself to the task rather than taking from the table of the task. Most people aren't even ready to take, and they want to take it. And that's what AI is there for. It's there for the taking. The artificial way, the authentic way, you have to give yourself to that task. All right, enough about that. Let's actually start doing some authentic demonstration. Halfway. So we're coming down with the line here. The eye line is halfway. The nose is going to sit halfway. Now, this side of the nose is here. This is going to sit halfway. Okay. Halfway on the mouth as well. Nothing. All of the squash and stretch has been done on the mouth. Halfway, halfway. That was a great question, by the way, because you're wanting to know if I get frustrated like you. Of course. And it's not like I still don't get frustrated today, right? The frustration is always, but the way I manage that frustration, it's always about understanding that frustration is either coming from the inauthentic self, the egoic expectations of undeserved reward, right? And then I return to my authentic center, and I say, this is what I'm doing right now, and what I'm getting from it is exactly what I've given. So here we want to blink those eyes. So I'm going to keep them like a circle. So we've got this circle shape here. We've got this circle shape here. We're going to put this shape in the middle. You see how fast I in between when I'm not guiding you? It becomes very, very intuitive. So all of those shape secrets that I was showing you, they become extremely, they become less about me drawing those clean, big shapes. But you're going to have to go through that. You're going to have to accept that you're not at this level presently. You have easily got the ability to be at this level. It's not like you don't. But you're going to have to accept that you're not at this level until you program your nervous system to do certain things. So here we are. Here's a rough in between of the head, perfect volume and form. Let's throw in a blink. I do not need to look at Akal the warrior. If ever there was an authentic warrior online, it would be my friend. I just saw you in the chat, Akal. There's somebody who's extremely authentic, always progressing and looking to better himself, working on the progression, focusing on the progression. The outcome is simply the effect. What is the cause? What is the cause? So, here, this is halfway. This is the halfway point where we're gonna put this in. Like that. Halfway on the turban. And what I think might be nice is I'll do this one a little bit more clean up for you, so you can see how we tidy everything up. Halfway on this. So Cameron, you're going to see the whole heavy line thing, why I tell you to do heavy lines in a minute. So this is halfway. All right. Let's have a look at how that works. Yeah, it's staying up for you though. When a single frame feels like motion, you've succeeded. Yes, but not always, because animation is a series of frames, and when you focus too much on that single frame, it becomes illustrative, like comic book artists who are great at doing comic book frames that depict a lot of motion. Doesn't mean they can animate. They can animate, but doesn't mean they have those skills yet, unless they learn them. So here we can see, even with the in-betweens missing, we feel the resistance of the timing of his pulling of the beard there, right? Much more in-betweens to be done there. Now I could clean this up, or I could do another in-between here. This might be a fun one. So rather than doing clean lines, which is just wasting stream time, let's move from a cleanup. Let me just and do a much more interesting in between, and we'll make this the last one, and then if you've got questions, you've got questions. If not, not. So here, 1 4 5 1 4 7. So this is going to be thirds again. So he's going to be turning his face. So here I'm going to be focusing on the face. So I'm going to be looking at that center line, 1/3 of the way, right? Then the other one will be another third of the way. So this center line, now already I know what I'm going to do with the nose. I've got it here. This nose shape I'm going to mirror on the other side, because that's the arc of the nose, right? So it's got to be 1/3 of the way. So Cameron, remember what I was saying about favoring on the front views? Favoring those things. So this is 1/3 of the way. This is coming here. This mouth is going to be a little bit tricky, but I'm going to deal with it like this shape. And so the construction shape. So again, so you see, I'm now demonstrating how I'm dealing with complex shapes on actually arguably a harder thing than anything I've in between before, but you see how intuitively and easily it's all coming to me. Subconsciously, the program has been made. So I'm coming in here and I'm putting in these shapes. So do I want to keep that eye? He blinks there. I'm going to keep his eyes open. It also show a good command of volume and control. People often blink to cheat the eyes. Not necessarily because it's you know, they blink and you can cheat the eyes and it's good, but they blink more so because it helps the acting. So right now a lot of light box work is happening. So I'm gonna keep his lips and his mouth like this, and we're gonna grow it on this side. The beard is gonna come somewhat here, the mustache is gonna come like this. Need to look at that mouth shape. Maybe put a little bit of a wave. See, his mouth is like water, right? It's like a wave effect. So I wanna keep that wave effect going, right? That's how we're gonna in between that. So there's a little bit of a secret there, which the average in betweener may struggle on. So this is why it might be nice to give them a little bit of a hand. This is gonna be 1/3 of the way. 1/3 of the way. 1/3 of the way. So you see, the way I would really in between is like the way you're seeing me doing it now. And then what I'll do is I'll kind of tidy this frame up. This is the frame I'll tidy up. So you can watch it happening before you. 1/3 of the way, 1/3. No varied charts here. Everything's 1/3 of the way. Okay, this is like that. Okay, right. 1/3. All perfect and good. All perfect and good. Okay, so got a little bit of a rough in between there. See the solidity. See the turban solidity as well, even without that thing. Let's quickly put that thing in there. So 1/3 of the way. Now there's going to be some shape changing going on here. But it's really going to help the illusion. There we go. Look at the solidity of that turban. The illusion of it as if it's a three-dimensional shape. How the head tilt forwards and then the turn really adds to that. Now let's have a look at the hand. We got this shape, we got this shape, so we're going to come up 1/3. Probably be about this. A little bit of a shape change there. The knuckles are going to come up, so I'm going to think about the shape of those knuckles coming up. This little triangle shape. See how suddenly I know what I'm looking for in the shape? So we're going to be making a fist out of these knuckles. So this is like this, and then they become a fist. So I have to think about each phalange of the hand, which is why anatomy is super important here. Now if we look at this frame, they've got this hole here separating that, so I have to maybe bring this one a little bit further down like that, and I've got to do something with the beard. It's going to be like that. Going to be like that. The thumb is here. I'm going to keep the thumb there to give it some placement. So the beard is being pulled away, and it's going in between here like that. And we can see the little tail of it there like that. Right, so let me make this hand heavy, but I'm just going to check it. Perfect. 1/3 of the way. See, my channel and my live streams are a testament to the authentic versus the artificial. Because you can see before you through a series, not just this one, through the whole, you can go back through my last few live streams. The amount of demonstration and information that is absolutely free of the authentic execution with no kind of, there's waffle, they're 4-hour, 3-hour live streams. But when I give the examples, I really explain with a slow demonstration. And it's available for everyone. And yet it has a very limited engagement or number of views. And the simple answer for that is that people find authentic content boring because they are conditioned to artificial, instantaneous, egoic, inauthentic content that appeals to the inauthentic self, that has no intention of uncovering the authenticity from within. So it's actually very easy for somebody, even if they are not going to join my course or anybody's course, and they're looking for free information that can help them understand the authentic execution of this process. You're having authentic, detailed, not somebody just read some questions from the chat and I'll draw and answer most of those questions and we'll have a nice hangout session and then I'll occasionally talk about what I'm doing. There's hours and hours and hours of authentic information, detailed, just like the hand shapes, the way I've shown you how to in between those hands. But people do not want to spend their time, their love, their energy, their money, whatever, on uncovering that authentic truth because they're so conditioned to the inauthentic. So here you're watching a complex hand movement being explained through first slow demonstration with detailed explanation and then fast execution. Now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to tidy this drawing up a bit and put it a little bit on model. So let me start with the hand. Right? I'm still not going to give it the super clean line, just enough to help it along, right? So help you see how it all goes, because I like to do my tidying up off stream where I'm not distracted by explaining things, because tidying up is a finishing job, and a finishing job, though it takes less technique in terms of getting things right, it's a focused concentration job on, you know, line quality, and that takes a little bit, it's a little bit slower, so I can put on some music or an audiobook and do that nicely. But I'm just going to make it somewhat clean for you to see. So no swooping nice lines or anything like that. Okay, so that's the hand. We can do this bit as well. Now I'm going to go into the face. Now in going into this face, I'm now turning off the light box, and I'm focusing on the volume by my eyeballing, because I kind of know where everything needs to be. And I'm flipping and watching. That all unfold before me. Maybe I take a little bit of that away. Let's put that like that. Again, hair. See, I've got to watch out because the gap between this is slightly bigger than this, but I want to keep that gap narrow. Put the light box on just to see the container of the space. Alrighty. Let's see what's going on in that eye. See how I'm a little bit quieter even when I'm trying to put it on model, because it takes a little bit of focused effort, because there's a drastic change in the face. It's not subtle like the previous stuff. Now I'm going to look at that. About the squash and stretch of the mouth. Think about that wave smile slowly being introduced. Subtle change in expression. Now I need to look at the first. I will do this side. That works. But for this, I want to look at the smile because that's where we're going. There we are. Nice. Now the beard. Need to be careful with the path of the beard. I don't want it to overlap. It can stay in the same place at that point, but it can't overlap. thumb is here. A little bit muckier with the beard. Perfect. Turban needs absolutely no work. I can simply trace that. I'll have a look at the chat in a minute. So sorry about that, Cameron. I said I was going to do a thick line thing because normally I do thick lines when I make these marks and then clean them with a thin, smooth line with the big swooping tracings over the thick line. But I think the thick line here will not really demonstrate to effect. It's much easier and faster for me to do these little thin strokes, and you watch the drawing being built via them. We'll get to do that at some other point. There's one person's work in the Facebook group that I'm going to have a little look at later on, and then we're going to kind of call the stream a day. So I think I'm going to do that instead. Keep it 1/3 of the way. One-third of the way. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. That'll do. Okay. Right. So hair is a much trickier in between. Speed, what pixel thickness of the brush you use? Again, that's my friend. You can vary it whatever size you want. It's meaningless. That's something that the AI bros and the inauthentic people care about. It doesn't matter. I interchange. I have a pressure sensitivity hair, right? I really couldn't care less too much, and I've got a little meter at the side. Let me do that. I've got a little meter here, so it's on 12. I can change it, right? I only ever change it if I really, really desperately want a super fat line. 12 is kind of okay for me to sit around. Really doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. That's more to the mind of the inauthentic artificial animators. So my stream is more focusing on the real, the process of the shapes being made, the choices, the secret science of shape simplification, the actual art and craft of hand-drawn animation. I urge everybody to get away from the software mentality of what in the software, what setting, whatever. Like, just create one frame, put another frame. See, I can make it thick with the default brush. I don't really do anything. Don't fiddle around with brush presets. Learn to draw on paper. Learn to draw the authentic way. And understand if you're going to do things with digitally, it's just like a tool, like paper and pencil. Treat it as nothing else. Otherwise, AI is there. It can do all of that fancy stuff better and faster. Variation versus consistency in the line. I'm not working here for, as you can see, this line is quite consistent, right? I'm working rough here. I worked cleaner here, but even this is rough, but it's kind of consistent. I've worked super clean. Just look at my channel with some of my finished stuff. I'm not really, as a one-man band, I'm not going to try and create thick and thin lines because it'll slow me down from a cleanup point of view. So for me, line consistency is just use the same brush. And again, I'm beginning to actually, as a hand-drawn authentic animator, I'm embracing the variation more nowadays. Still, this is a bit too controlled. It's still a bit too controlled and clean. But I think in the age of artificial fake animation, our authenticity lies in the organic variation. The sketchiness of the line is what's probably going to help us, our authenticity shine through over the mimicry of that, you know, with sketchy filters and whatever, which tend to look a bit repetitive. So it's if you want to learn the art of cleanup and clean line, that again is another video entirely, which has to be focused on with the same amount of attention that this in-betweening video is. Haven't been chatting that much, been doing some John Lounsbury and Jafar studies in my sketchbook. Absolutely the right thing to be doing, my friend. Studying from the great John Lounsbury. You can see John Lounsbury all in Jafar, actually. He's been asked to work with these shapes, which were very much probably The Thief and the Cobbler was being made at a similar time, and they were claiming to be inspired by flowing Arabic lines and Arabic art, and Eric Goldberg was talking about Al Hirschfield, but one cannot help but see that the Disney executives, I'm guessing, may have wanted it to look a bit like Zigzag in Thief and the Cobbler. But in spite of that, I can really see the Lounsbury effect within a lot of Andreas's work. He tries to put Milt in there, I'm sure. I'm not going to pretend like I know him intimately, but I know a little bit about him through what he's written about himself and his things, but I know that he would absolutely love John Lounsbury as well. And I can see a lot of Lounsbury in this character when I've looked at certain shape choices, the roundness of the hands, which is what I've tried to make my hand shapes. I've been thinking of John Lounsbury hands. All right, so we've done that. That is that in between done, right? There's more in betweens to be done, but it's simply a case of doing another half. So that's the state of it. I think this may well be the last live stream concerning this Jafar animation. The rest of it is all just in betweening, which I shall proceed to do off stream. What I am going to do is, it's striking how much of a piece of animation lives or dies on the quality of its cleanup. In my opinion, there are modern cartoons that look lifeless in the final, but actually pretty decent in the roughs. Yes, that's true. That's true. Because you're looking at living, bouncing lines, particularly with the Japanese anime, because it's on a limited frame rate. So once those lines are cleaned and those held drawings are held for a certain amount of time, the illusion of movement is lost because of all those dancing rough lines have disappeared. Disney animation, when it's cleaned up, in my opinion, still loses that. I like the rough sketchiness, but when you look at a piece of animation on consistent ones and twos that's flowing, it still feels very much alive. And it takes an art. There's an art to doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Growth, Development and Progress group on Facebook, which is free for any of you to join. We've got 4.1 thousand members in here. You'll have to answer a question. We've had some people joining without answering the questions. The reason being is you need to prove you're authentic in this artificial world. You don't, it's free, but you need to answer some questions because we've had some artificial bots joining this group spamming the wall. And where you need to prove you're authentic and that you authentically love hand-drawn animation by answering a simple question about why do you like hand-drawn animation. So if you're not willing to do that, then you'll be rejected. There's, it's just prove you're an authentic animator by answering an authentic question like how do you feel about hand-drawn animation? So we've got this work by Theodore Milanov, who is studying the primary and secondary action from the Real Animator Training archives. So if we go over to Real Animator Training Library, so ambanimation.com, join the Real Animator Training Library. There are two types of archives. There are the, you can get the bundles, you can get the starter bundle or the master bundle, the everything bundle. So Theodore is on the intermediate archive. He's completed his basics and he is doing this study here. So if we go into the intermediate section, so he's, well, let's look at the finished one here, which is
slowing in and slowing out. Next, you will animate a sack throwing a ball via the law of primary and secondary action.
So Theodore has done this exercise. So he's done solid drawing, squash and stretch, anticipation, follow through, overlap, primary and secondary action. So Theodore is working on his authentic animation by following these 3 lectures, which cover the process. So let's have a look at what Theodore has done. I'm going to loop this animation. I'm going to hit play. Very nice, Theodore. I'm really enjoying your growth. This is a pretty accurate recreation of the test. My only suggestion to you, timing-wise, everything is looking good. It's feeling just like the exercise. So you've really managed to be able to recreate the power, the feel, the anticipation, the little shuffle. His feet are planted perfectly on the floor, no sliding on the floor, which is the mistake some people make out of this. The only thing I will say is when you're drawing your sack shapes, remember how in the previous lecture of squash and stretch, I talk about leg bags, hidden leg bags. So we've got a bit of a belly there, and there's this, and then we join that to get nice squash and stretch in the arm, right? And this kind of secretly joins up to that, and we remove some of those lines, and that can even cross in here and, create a little bit of a dink here. And if we have the other arm here like this, we then try to make this all. So when we go into drawing these creases on the sack, they have a point of origin, and that helps you, even through a very basic way, primes you to learn drapery, right? Which is, again, a lot of people come to Real Animator Training, inauthentic people, saying this is more like a dead chicken than a flour sack. All right, pal, draw your shitty little flour sack and animate that and think you are really getting into the personality and the feel of the character. And then when it comes to moving a person around, you have no idea of squash and stretch, all these secret little tricks that make things line up. It's all, what are you going to do with his little wiggly hands? How are you going to bend his legs? This has been masterfully designed to help you truly. Now here's this hand going this way. This is going to be stretching into there. Truly learn how to turn these things. So here's a guy jumping, right? Okay, he's wearing shorts. I got to start again because I was doing it like that. Let's treat it like the flour sack. Right? So here's the guy jumping, right? I'm going to have him in shorts. We got squash and stretch and we got pull on the back of that. Now we got a little bit of sleeve coming through here like this. We can really feel the anatomy in his body. And it's simply just the flour sack. We can change it to like big pirate pants, right? But you, even without doing life drawing or anything much of that, you've now got an understanding via the AMB flour sack, right? Of how the legs and arms create these points to squash and stretch. So Theodore, your work is absolutely great. You're doing everything right. You're exactly where you need to be. But because you've been copying the screen and trying to draw my squash and stretch shapes by eyeballing, perhaps you've missed what was happening on the previous lecture. Like so here where we're doing the folding, it feels a little bit flat. Feels a little bit flat. And then when we watch how those shapes go into one another, they don't naturally, see this shape here doesn't naturally go into the one into the leg shape, right? So these are little things that are all gonna happen. You've made no mistakes. As I said, Theodore, those who work with real animator training are the brave few who are walking that path and witnessing things unfolding before them, right? You're watching your own progress. You're not going to get it perfect. Even if you're following this information, you are training your nervous system, right? As I said, you can have like an Adonis with all the serratus anterior, all the pectoralis majors, you know. You can have like a real muscle-bound man, you know, godlike Herculean physique. But then you ask him to stand on his hands and he's never done it before. What do you think's going to happen? Does he even know how to kick his legs up, right? Does he even understand any of it? His big muscular back, his shoulder blades. Can he even get into this position? Has he flexible enough to get into the position to, if he's never done it before? Highly unlikely. So you, Theodore, have done nothing. This is why when people say they want critiques in the inauthentic realm, where they just post mindless work in mindless groups of headless chickens with the blind leading the blind, and they go critique, it's empty, egoic critique to feel like progression, but it's merely blind leading the blind. Imagine if one of his mates, a strong man with his strong belt game, and he's never stood on his hands before, but then he's trying to tell him how to do a handstand because he's got the world, he's pulled a big truck, you know, for the longest. He's a world record breaker for the strongest man in the world. Imagine him, oh, well, we've got the strength. Maybe you should try this, maybe you should try that. Blind leading the blind. Theodore, you have made such progress. I'm going to try and find one of your early works, just so not only people watching, but people in the group can see just how you've progressed, and you can remind yourself, okay, so you did that previous exercise here, the follow through and overlap. Let's have another look at that. See if you paid more attention at the shapes. There's a little bit of sliding on the floor, so good, you've improved that. On the next exercise, he's not sliding on the floor. So, but you've definitely been squashing and stretching here with the shapes. Those shapes are still a little bit off, but they're lining up a little bit more there because we focus on that a little bit more in that exercise. But here's your squash and stretch, your original flower sack squash and stretch. So I can really see how you're drawing that sack. Look at the little round hands and round feet, just like you've already come so far with that sack. It's absolutely great. But this for me is the best one. Look at the proportioning on this. You got the movements right, but the proportioning is so off here. But your solid drawing is pretty on point. So well done. But this to me shows that, yeah, here, look at the proportioning here. Before you had a real proportioning problem. But you really understanding the animation, which is something that even from the beginning you're quite natural at. So it's really quite good, actually. So you've been through all these. I can really see some. Let's see. A lot of people struggle with this one. A lot of people struggle with the volume of this. Excellent. Your volume control is and your arcing is pretty on point, Theodore. So, yeah, I think slowly as you work your way through this flower sack, you're going to pick up those subtle drawing skills. And not everybody gets feedback with their exercises, but if you watch this stream far enough, you've got a bit of feedback from me. And just focus on the squash and stretch. Maybe after you complete the archive, revisit the flag waving exercise and focus on the way those things intermingle with each other. So great work, Theodore. Proof of authentic animation unfolding before us. Really impressive stuff, the growth going on there. All right, so those of you that are interested in joining the Real Animator Training Library, simply visit ambanimation.com, click on Join Now, and learn from the most authentic animation course that there is in terms of the basics, intermediate, anatomy, advanced, and professional animation lectures. Or you can learn and watch. If you enjoy this content, this type of content, you can enjoy even more in-depth revelations towards your authenticity via the animating a scene from the complete process from start to finish, how to animate your own film and animation lectures. I'm going to leave it at that there. Those of you who want to unravel your inner authenticity in the artificial realm, Real Animator Training is waiting for you. All right. I'm going to look if there are any more chats, any more questions in the chat. And if not, we will call it a day. It's striking how a piece of animation, there we go, the same thing about cleanup. So there are no more, oh, we've got it first time. Ayubazakamam. Hello, sorry if I did not pronounce your name very well. I'm sure through repetition my nervous system will get it right. Ayubazakam. Ayubazakmam. 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 I don't know if that's still correct, but you see how I'm programming my nervous system? You learn animation the same way, and that's what Real Animator Training is all about. It's designed to program your nervous system into creating from an authentic standpoint, as opposed to an artificial software dependent fake AI rush job approach. All right. Thank you for the stream. It was very nice work, inspiring stream, good authentic work. Authentic is the key. Absolutely 100%. If that's the word I'm going to keep repeating out there, and if it annoys, as I said, if it annoys some of you, either it's annoying the authentic part of you that wants to carry on sleeping in the artificial realm, or it's annoying the artificial part of you who wants to remain in control over the authentic. So you can have two choices. You can either tune your frequency to authenticity where it won't annoy you and carry on watching, or you can go to the sea of artificial alternatives around me for you to enjoy and pluck from the fakery and continue indulging in the false. All right, so that is that. Let me now become big on the screen as I end in our usual manner. To those of you who are about to draw, I salute you. Paper is king. And do your work, not just your work and no more, that little bit more for the lavishing's sake, that little bit more that's worth all the rest. And if you doubt as you must, and if you suffer as you must, do your work. Put your heart into it, and the skies shall clear. And then from your very doubt and suffering shall be born the supreme joy of life. Thank you so much for joining me on this stream. I shall see you all on the next one. Continue to keep it real and be as authentic as you can be. Bye-bye.